Hello, welcome to our first summative assessment. So this is the first one that's going to count towards your grade. What we're going to do is write a CER paragraph. And CER stands for claim, evidence, and reasoning. And these are the same kinds of paragraphs that you've probably written before for ELA. And if you haven't before, for sure you will this year. And they form the basis for really any nonfiction writing that you're going to do as you get older. So in essence, these are going to form the heart and soul of any of the longer papers you write in high school, in college, and beyond. Learning to master them now will set you in good stead for later in life. So with that being said, let's talk about each section of the paragraph, both what their purpose is and then what to include in that particular section. So a claim is what you're going to try and prove in the paragraph. For our purposes, this is some kind of an opinion in answer to the prompt. Okay. Evidence, these are going to be the examples, the quotes, the facts that show that your claim is a correct answer to the question. So, true story, in history, there's rarely only one right answer. There's lots and lots of gray. So your evidence and your reasoning are what's going to make your answer right or wrong most of the time. Okay, so evidence and the reasoning are the most important parts. And your reasoning is where you're going to explain the ways in which your evidence proves that you have given a correct answer. Okay. This is where you're showing off the meat and potatoes of your thinking and convince the audience that you're correct. Okay. So history isn't just a collection of facts that tell what happens. It's the story that we tell using those facts. Okay, that's what history is. We tend to, and by we I really mean society, present history as if it were a fait accompli, as if it were always going to be that way, right? And as if there's only one way of seeing those facts. But the truth is that when you actually dig into what professional historians are writing and saying, what you'll find is there's a whole lot of debate about the facts and what they mean. And just like in your life, the specifics in any given situation are subject to change. So my job is to introduce you to the mysteries of history, and this is our first real foray into doing so. So I'm going to pause here real quick and give you a very literal explanation of some of this. Okay, so if you go to a room, and you can pause the video after I'm done talking, try this on your own. Okay, go into the doorway of the room and just stand there in the doorway, look out over the room. Then I want you to cross over the room. So go to the other side, and just like you were standing in the doorway, this time I want you to put your back up against the wall or as close as you can get. Okay. Then I want you to look at the room again. And what you'll notice is that you see different things. Okay. That's how history works, is you're looking at things from different angles, different sources, and you're trying to figure out what's the most right answer. Okay? And each source you look at is going to give you a different piece of the puzzle. So that's why there's not really one right answer. Just like there's not one way to describe a room, but your description is going to change based on where you're standing in the room. There's no one right way to describe a historical event. Your perspective is going to change. What's important is going to change depending on what you already know about, what you know about the event or what you've learned. And this is why the evidence and the reasoning matter so much more than the claim. Because the evidence and the reasoning are going to be what show us that you're actually talking about the room and not about, say, a street or a house. Okay? And it's going to show us that you're grounded in some kind of reality. So when we're writing these paragraphs, and now I'm back on text here, okay, it's worth remembering a few things. Okay? This is more about what to include, how to do it correctly, because I know that you're worried about that. Okay? So first thing you got to know is that your claim has to address the prompt. And in this case, for this specific assignment, the prompt is which Egyptian pharaoh was the most important. Okay, so it has to address the prompt, and it has to be something you can prove or disprove with evidence. Okay, so sometimes in history, we'll do the opposite of proving, right? We'll say we know that that's not right because of the evidence. We're not going to do that today, though, so I don't want you to worry about that. Right now, what you're going to try and prove is which Egyptian pharaoh was the most important. Okay. And to do that, you're welcome to pull from our reading. You don't need to do additional research. Let me say that again. I do not need, nor do I expect you to do additional research. Pull from the reading. Okay. So your evidence needs to be related to the claim. Specifically, it's got to be something that shows that the claim is correct. And this is probably the number one problem that kids run into when I have kids doing these kinds of things. Okay? They pick the wrong evidence for their claim. Okay? They pick the wrong evidence for their claim. So they claim that Khufu is the most important, but then the evidence they pick actually says Ramses. There we go. We'll go with Ramses. Says that Ramses was the most important. Okay, that's what I mean. Your evidence needs to be related to your claim. It needs to back your claim up. Okay, so if you say that Khufu is the most important, your evidence has to show me why Khufu is the most important. Can't be about Ramses. It's got to be about Khufu. All right, and reasoning. Tell me how your evidence proves your claim. Okay. This is where you're really showing off your thinking and your understanding of the topic. So what I'm going to have you doing for the assignment is filling in this graphic organizer. The graphic organizer is going to have spots for you to think through each of these three parts. And then it's got a spot, and this is important, for you to put it all together and write it as a paragraph. Because remember, assignment title, claim, evidence, reasoning, paragraph. So should be a paragraph. A paragraph is a complete thought. So if you do these three things, that is a complete thought, whether your complete thought is 3 sentences or 30 sentences. Okay? You want to do these 3 things. That's what constitutes a paragraph. Before you ask, yes, you can resubmit it based on feedback if you need to. Yes, I would be delighted to answer your questions or help you think through things if you need me to. Just let me know. All right, good luck with it.